Victoria Walters stared numbly at the letter in her hand, the words blurring through her tears. Her great-aunt Meredith, a woman she'd met only twice in her life, had left her a mansion. Not money, not stocks, but an actual mansion perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean in a small coastal town called Seabrook. "This has to be some kind of mistake," she whispered to herself, sinking onto her worn sofa in her cramped studio apartment. The rent was already 2 weeks late, and her boss at the bookstore had cut her hours again. At 28, Victoria had imagined her life would be different, more stable, more purposeful. Not this constant struggle to stay afloat. She read the letter again, this time noticing the attorney's contact information at the bottom. Martin Green-esque. Without giving herself time to reconsider, she dialed the number. "Yes, Miss Walters," the attorney confirmed after she introduced herself. Meredith Walters was quite specific in her will. "Seacliff Manor belongs to you now, along with all its contents and grounds. There is, however, one stipulation." Victoria braced herself. "What's that?" "You must live in the property for at least 6 months before you can sell it." 6 months in a mansion by the sea. It sounded like a dream compared to her current situation. "When can I move in?" 2 weeks later, Victoria pulled her ancient Honda up the winding driveway of Seacliff Manor. The photos hadn't done it justice. The mansion was magnificent, a sprawling Victorian structure with intricate gingerbread trim, a wraparound porch, and towers that seemed to touch the clouds. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the weathered gray shingles, making the whole place seem like something out of a fairy tale. Victoria stepped out of her car, the salty breeze immediately tangling her auburn hair. She tucked a strand behind her ear, hardly believing this place was now hers. A place where she could finally breathe, think, and figure out her next steps without the constant pressure of impending bills. As she walked toward the front door, key in hand, she noticed a sleek black car parked near the side of the house. Before she could wonder about it, the massive front door swung open, revealing a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit. "Miss Walters, I'm Harrison Blackwell." "I was just finishing up my assessment," Victoria frowned. "Assessment of what?" The man stepped forward, extending his hand. His grip was firm, confident. "My apologies for the confusion. I'm representing a client interested in purchasing Seacliff Manor. We've been trying to acquire this property for some time, but your great-aunt was resistant to our offers." Victoria's heart sank. She hadn't even stepped inside yet, and already someone was trying to take it away from her. "Well, Mr. Blackwell, I'm afraid your client will have to continue being disappointed. I'm not selling, at least not for 6 months, according to the will." Harrison's expression remained neutral, but she caught a flicker of something in his deep blue eyes. Frustration, challenge. "6 months is a long time, Miss Walters. My client is prepared to make a very generous offer now, enough for you to buy any other home you'd like with plenty left over." Victoria straightened her spine. "The answer is no. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to see my home for the first time without a real estate vulture hovering over my shoulder." A smile tugged at the corner of Harrison's mouth. "Real estate vulture? That's a new one." He reached into his jacket pocket and handed her a business card. "When you change your mind, call me directly." "I won't change my mind," Victoria stated firmly, taking the card nonetheless. 6 months is a long time," Harrison repeated, walking past her toward his car. "Welcome to Seabrook, Miss Walters. I have a feeling we'll be seeing a lot of each other." Victoria watched him drive away, annoyed at his presumption, but also curious about what made this particular piece of property so desirable to his mysterious client. Pushing thoughts of Harrison Blackwell aside, Victoria unlocked the door to her new home and stepped inside. The foyer took her breath away. A grand staircase swept upward, illuminated by a massive crystal chandelier. To her right, a formal living room with floor-to-ceiling windows framed the ocean view. To her left, a wood-paneled library with built-in shelves stuffed with books. "Aunt Meredith," Victoria whispered. "Why me?" She spent the rest of the day exploring the house, discovering room after room of antiques, art, and history. By nightfall, she'd claimed a bedroom in the east wing with a private balcony overlooking the ocean. As she unpacked her meager belongings, she couldn't help feeling like an imposter in this grand space. The next morning, Victoria ventured into town for groceries. Seabrook was picturesque, a main street lined with quaint shops, cafes, and galleries catering to tourists and wealthy second-home owners. She felt conspicuous in her faded jeans and oversized sweater, aware of curious glances from locals probably wondering about the new resident of Seacliff Manor. At the local market, an elderly woman approached her while she was examining avocados. "You must be Meredith's great-niece," the woman said warmly. "I'm Millionaire Finch. Your aunt and I were in the garden club together for 30 years. Victoria smiled, grateful for the friendly face. "Victoria Walters, it's nice to meet you. How are you settling in? That old house can be quite overwhelming." "It's an adjustment," Victoria admitted. "I still can't believe she left it to me. We barely knew each other." Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "Meredith always said she saw herself in you. Stubborn, independent, unwilling to follow the path others laid out. She was quite proud when you refused that scholarship to business school to pursue your writing." Victoria blinked in surprise. "She knew about that?" "Oh, she kept tabs on you, more than you realized." Eleanor patted her arm. "Seacliff was her sanctuary. I think she wanted it to be yours too." As they chatted, Victoria noticed Harrison Blackwell enter the market. He was dressed more casually today, dark jeans and a light blue button-down that matched his eyes but still radiated that aura of wealth and confidence. He nodded in her direction before heading toward the wine section. "I see you've met our resident corporate raider," Eleanor commented, following Victoria's gaze. "Corporate raider?" "Harrison Blackwell. Built his fortune buying undervalued properties, developing them and flipping them for massive profits. He's got his sights set on transforming this entire coastline into luxury resorts and condos." Eleanor's disapproval was evident. "Your aunt fought him off for years." Victoria frowned. "He told me he represents a client interested in Seacliff." Eleanor laughed. "The client is him, dear, always has been. He uses that line to distance himself from negotiations. Typical Harrison, always playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers." That evening, as Victoria sat on her porch watching the sunset, a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. When she opened it, Harrison Blackwell stood there holding a bottle of wine. "Peace offering," he said, holding up the bottle. "I believe we got off on the wrong foot yesterday." Victoria crossed her arms. "You lied to me. You're not representing a client, you're the one who wants to buy Seacliff." Harrison had the grace to look slightly abashed. "A professional habit I'm trying to break. May I come in? I'd like to explain my interest in your property." Against her better judgment, Victoria stepped aside. "Fine, but I'm still not selling." They settled in the library, where Victoria had lit a fire to ward off the evening chill. Harrison looked at home among the antiques and leather-bound books, relaxed in a way he hadn't been the day before. "I grew up in Seabrook," he began after pouring them each a glass of wine. "My father worked as a groundskeeper for several of these estates, including Seacliff. We lived in the caretaker's cottage on the edge of town." Victoria watched him, surprised by this glimpse of a different Harrison than the ruthless businessman Eleanor had described. "When I was 12, your great-aunt caught me trespassing on her property. I was trying to reach a cove that can only be accessed through Seacliff's grounds." His eyes grew distant with the memory. "Instead of reporting me, she gave me a key to the gate and made me promise to always lock it behind me." "That doesn't explain why you want to tear it down and build a resort," Victoria said. Harrison's eyes snapped back to hers. "Who said anything about tearing it down? I want to preserve Seacliff, not destroy it." But Eleanor Finch said, "That I'm transforming the coastline, I am, but not every property deserves the same fate." He leaned forward. "Seacliff is special. I want to restore it to its original glory and open it as a boutique hotel, keeping all its historical elements intact." Victoria sipped her wine, considering his words. Why didn't you just tell me that yesterday? Would it have made a difference? You seemed pretty set against selling, regardless of my intentions. She couldn't argue with that. So why did my aunt refuse to sell to you if your plans were so preservation-minded? A shadow crossed Harrison's face. Meredith and I had a complicated relationship in her later years. She didn't trust that my intentions were pure. Victoria studied him, trying to reconcile the different versions of this man: the ruthless developer, the nostalgic local boy, the deceitful negotiator. Which was the real Harrison Blackwell? Over the next few weeks, Victoria fell into a rhythm at Seacliff. Mornings were for writing. She'd set up a desk in the sunroom overlooking the garden. Afternoons were spent exploring the property or tackling small restoration projects. The mansion needed work: peeling wallpaper, creaky floorboards, a roof that leaked in 3 places, but Victoria found herself enjoying these challenges. She was up on a ladder fixing a loose shutter when Harrison's car pulled into the driveway. He'd visited several times since their evening in the library, each time with a different reason, dropping off historical information about the house, bringing a contractor to look at the roof unsolicited, or simply claiming to be in the neighborhood. Today, he emerged from his car carrying what looked like blueprints. "You're going to break your neck," he called out, shielding his eyes from the sun as he looked up at her. Victoria ignored the flutter in her stomach at the sight of him. "I've got it under control. What brings you by this time?" "More subtle attempts to convince me to sell," Harrison grinned, not bothering to deny it. "I brought the original architectural plans for Seacliff, found them in the county archives, thought you might be interested." Victoria climbed down from the ladder, brushing dust from her hands onto her jeans. "Actually, that is interesting. Come in, I'll make coffee." In the kitchen, a grand space with modern appliances that clashed with the vintage cabinetry, Harrison spread the blueprints across the island while Victoria prepared coffee. "See here." Harrison pointed to a section of the drawing. "There's a hidden passageway behind the library that leads to a lookout tower. It was sealed off in the 1940s, but the structure should still be there." Victoria leaned closer, her arm brushing against his. "A secret passageway, like something out of a mystery novel." "This house is full of secrets," Harrison replied, his voice dropping lower. "Rumor has it your great-aunt used to hide rum runners during Prohibition." Victoria laughed. "Now you're making things up." "Am I?" His blue eyes twinkled with mischief. "Why don't we find out?" They spent the afternoon searching for the entrance to the hidden passage, moving bookshelves and tapping on panels in the library. Victoria couldn't remember when she'd last had so much fun. Harrison was different today: playful, engaged, less the businessman and more the boy who'd explored these grounds decades ago. "Found it," Harrison called out suddenly, pushing on a decorative wooden rosette that caused a narrow door to pop open. Victoria gasped in delight. "I can't believe it was here all this time." Harrison retrieved flashlights from his car, and they ventured into the narrow, dusty passage. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and the wooden stairs creaked ominously beneath their feet. "Maybe this isn't such a good idea," Victoria hesitated, eyeing the questionable structural integrity of the staircase. Harrison took her hand, his grip warm and reassuring. "Trust me, I won't let anything happen to you." The simple touch sent a current of awareness through her body. Victoria found herself looking at their joined hands rather than watching her step, which nearly caused her to stumble. Harrison steadied her immediately, his arm wrapping around her waist. "Careful." They were close now, his face just inches from hers in the dim light. For a wild moment, Victoria thought he might kiss her, and even more surprisingly, she realized she wanted him to. Instead, Harrison cleared his throat and released her, continuing up the stairs. "We're almost there." The lookout tower was small but magical, a hexagonal room with windows on all sides, providing a 360-degree view of the property and the ocean beyond. Years of neglect had left it dusty and cobwebbed, but the potential was obvious. "This is incredible," Victoria breathed, turning slowly to take in each view. I had no idea this was even here. Harrison watched her, a soft expression on his face. This was my favorite spot as a kid. Your aunt would sometimes find me up here reading when I was supposed to be helping my father with the grounds. His voice grew quieter. She never told on me. In that moment, Victoria saw Harrison clearly not as the wealthy developer or the polished businessman, but as the boy who'd found refuge in this magical place. It made her wonder what other layers existed beneath his confident exterior. As they made their way back down, Victoria's curiosity got the better of her. Why did you leave Seabrook, if you loved it so much? Harrison was silent for a moment. My father lost his job when I was 17. We had to move to Portland for him to find work. I promised myself I'd come back someday, successful enough to never worry about being forced to leave again. And now you're back, buying up the whole town, Victoria said, but without judgment, not the whole town, just the parts that matter. His eyes met hers in the dim light, like Seacliff. Over the next month, their encounters grew more frequent. Harrison would happen to be at the local cafe when Victoria stopped for her morning coffee. He introduced her to local contractors who could help with the mansion's restoration at friends and family rates. He even organized a dinner with several longtime residents who shared stories about Seacliff and her great-aunt, helping Victoria feel connected to this inheritance that had fallen into her lap so unexpectedly. With each interaction, the wall Victoria had built against his charm crumbled a little more. She found herself looking forward to his visits, enjoying his company beyond the constant undercurrent of his desire to purchase the property. Harrison was intelligent, witty, and surprisingly down-to-earth despite his success. He understood her love for the old house in a way no one else did. But just as Victoria was beginning to think their relationship might be evolving into something more personal than professional, she discovered the truth. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. Victoria was in town picking up supplies to repair a leaky bathroom faucet when she overheard a conversation at the hardware store. Blackwell's newest project is going to change everything, a man was saying to the cashier. Luxury condos and a marina where Seacliff stands. The whole north side of town will be transformed. Victoria froze, paint samples clutched in her hand. This couldn't be right. Harrison had specifically told her he wanted to preserve Seacliff as a boutique hotel, maintaining its historical integrity. When's groundbreaking? The cashier asked. As soon as he closes the deal with the new owner. Word is she's holding out, but Blackwell always gets what he wants. Heart pounding, Victoria abandoned her purchases and drove straight to Harrison's office downtown. His secretary tried to stop her, but Victoria pushed past, throwing open his office door without knocking. Harrison looked up from his computer, surprise giving way to pleasure at seeing her until he registered her expression. Victoria, what's wrong? Luxury condos and a marina. She demanded, voice shaking. That's your preservation plan? Harrison's face went carefully blank. He stood slowly. Where did you hear that? Does it matter? Is it true? Victoria hated the betrayal she felt. She'd started to trust him, to care for him, maybe even more than care. Harrison sighed heavily. It was the original plan, yes, before I knew you, before you knew me. What does that have to do with anything? He came around the desk, reaching for her, but Victoria stepped back. Victoria, please let me explain. I trusted you, she whispered. I thought we were becoming friends. We are more than friends, and you know it. Harrison's voice was urgent. The plans changed, I changed. Spending time with you, seeing your love for Seacliff, it reminded me why I wanted the property in the first place. How am I supposed to believe anything you say? Victoria asked. You've been lying to me from the start, pretending to represent a client, pretending to care about preservation. I haven't been pretending to care about you, Harrison said quietly. The raw honesty in his voice made Victoria pause, but her hurt was too fresh. I need time to think. Please don't come to Seacliff. Please don't call. She left his office with tears burning her eyes, feeling like a fool for having started to fall for Harrison Blackwell. The worst part was, despite everything, her heart still leapt at his declaration. "We are more than friends, and you know it." For 2 weeks, Victoria threw herself into restoring Seacliff, working until she was too exhausted to think about Harrison. She hired local contractors to fix the roof, refinished the hardwood floors in the main hall herself, and repainted the kitchen cabinets a cheerful blue that brightened the space considerably. Eleanor Finch and other locals who had been friends with her aunt stopped by regularly, bringing food, stories, and companionship. Through these visits, Victoria learned more about the relationship between Harrison and her great-aunt. According to Eleanor, Harrison had approached Meredith multiple times about buying Seacliff, initially with plans for development but later with his boutique hotel concept. "Your aunt didn't trust his change of heart," Eleanor explained over tea in the garden. "She thought he was just changing tactics to get what he wanted, but I always wondered if there was more to it the way he talked about this place, about her. It wasn't just business to him." "Then why did I hear about luxury condos at the hardware store?" Victoria asked. Eleanor sighed. "Harrison's company has multiple projects. The marina development is real, but it's planned for the old cannery property on the north side of town, not Seacliff. People assume every project he touches will be the same, but that's not true." Victoria felt a twinge of doubt. Had she jumped to conclusions? So he wasn't lying about wanting to preserve Seacliff? "I can't speak to his current intentions," Eleanor said carefully. "But I know he fought his investors and partners over this property for years. They wanted one thing, he insisted on another. That doesn't seem like a man solely motivated by profit." That night, unable to sleep, Victoria found herself in the library. On impulse, she opened the secret passage and climbed to the lookout tower, remembering how Harrison's eyes had lit up when they discovered it together. As she stood looking out at the moonlight on the water, Victoria realized something important. In just 3 months, she had fallen in love not just with Seacliff, but with the complicated man who wanted to buy it from her. And now she didn't know what to do about either situation. The next morning, a certified letter arrived. Victoria's hands trembled as she opened it, recognizing Harrison's company letterhead. Inside was a formal offer to purchase Seacliff Manor for nearly double what Victoria imagined the property was worth. Attached was a detailed proposal for the boutique hotel conversion, with architectural renderings showing how the historical elements would be preserved while modernizing the infrastructure. A handwritten note was paperclipped to the back. "Victoria, this is my official offer, submitted through proper channels with no tricks or hidden agendas. I understand if you never want to see me again, but please know that my feelings for you are real, separate from my desire for this property. Whatever you decide about Seacliff, I hope someday you might consider giving me another chance to prove that." Harrison. Victoria read the proposal carefully. The plans were beautiful, thoughtful, everything Harrison had claimed they would be. The hotel would maintain Seacliff's character while making it accessible to others who might appreciate its history and beauty. He'd even included a provision that the lookout tower and certain rooms would remain private, available for Victoria's use whenever she wished. Before she could reconsider, Victoria grabbed her keys and drove to Harrison's office. This time his secretary waved her straight through. Harrison stood when she entered, his expression guarded but hopeful. "Victoria, I got your offer," she said, closing the door behind her. "And it's very generous." Harrison's jaw tightened. But I need to know something first." Victoria stepped closer. "Why Seacliff? Of all the properties in Seabrook, why has this one been your focus for so long?" Harrison was quiet for a moment, then gestured to the chair across from his desk. When they were both seated, he spoke softly. "My mother left when I was 8. My father worked constantly to keep us afloat. I was alone a lot." His fingers drummed lightly on the desk. "Seacliff became my escape. Your aunt, she saw me not as the groundskeeper's son or the kid from the wrong side of town, but as someone who belonged there as much as anyone." Victoria listened, seeing the vulnerability beneath his confident exterior. "When we had to leave Seabrook, I promised myself I'd come back for Seacliff someday. Not to change it, but to preserve what it meant to me. He met her eyes directly. Then you arrived, and suddenly it wasn't just about the house anymore. What was it about? Victoria asked, her heart racing. How you loved it immediately, how you defended it against me. A small smile touched his lips. How you seemed to belong there in a way I never quite did, and I realized I wanted both the house and the woman who inherited it. Victoria took a deep breath. I'm not selling Seacliff. Harrison's face fell, but he nodded. I understand, at least not entirely. She reached into her bag and pulled out a contract she'd drafted with the help of an attorney in Portland. I'm proposing a partnership. You get 60% ownership to develop your boutique hotel. I retain 40% and continue living in the East Wing, which will remain private. Harrison stared at her, then at the contract, then back at her. A partnership? I've grown to love Seacliff, but I can't afford to maintain it properly on my own. Your vision for preserving it while sharing it with others makes sense. Victoria slid the contract across the desk. And maybe I've grown to care about the boy who found refuge here too. Harrison stood and came around the desk, taking her hands and pulling her to her feet. Is this your way of saying you forgive me? It's my way of saying I understand you better now, Victoria replied. And I'd like to understand even more. Harrison's hands framed her face gently. I've been falling in love with you since the moment you called me a real estate vulture, he confessed. Watching you bring Seacliff back to life these past few months only made it worse. Victoria smiled. Worse. Impossible to ignore, impossible to walk away from. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Even if you never sold me a single brick of that house. When he finally kissed her, Victoria felt as though she'd found a home she never knew she was searching for, not just in Seacliff, but in Harrison's arms. 6 months to the day after Victoria arrived in Seabrook, Seacliff Manor hosted its first event as a partially renovated boutique hotel, the engagement party of Victoria Walters and Harrison Blackwell. The grand ballroom glowed with candlelight as friends and neighbors gathered to celebrate. Standing in the lookout tower after the party, watching the moonlight on the water, Harrison wrapped his arms around Victoria from behind. Having regrets? He asked, kissing her temple. About the partnership, about us, Victoria turned in his arms. Only that it took us so long to figure this out. My great-aunt would be laughing at us both. I think she knew exactly what she was doing when she left you this place, Harrison said. She always could see further ahead than most people. To think I almost sold this place the moment I inherited it, Victoria mused. If you hadn't been so persistent. If you hadn't been so stubborn, Harrison countered with a smile. Victoria leaned up to kiss him. I'm glad we found a way to share Seacliff. It's too special for just one person. It brought us together, Harrison agreed. And now we get to preserve it together for the town, for future guests, and someday for our children. Victoria smiled at the thought. From an unexpected inheritance to an unexpected love, Seacliff Manor had changed her life completely. As Harrison led her back down the secret passage, hand in hand, Victoria knew that the greatest treasure she'd found wasn't the mansion itself, but the love that had been waiting for her within its walls.